The Arctic wilderness stretches endlessly across Norway's northern frontier, where polar bears outnumber people and the sun refuses to set for months at a time. Here, ancient glaciers carve their way through mountain ranges older than memory, creating a landscape that exists nowhere else on Earth. This is Norway at its most raw and elemental, where the forces that shaped our planet remain visible in every frozen cliff face and windswept plateau. From these Arctic heights, the land descends through 1,000 variations of stone and water. Fjords slice deep into the coastline, their walls rising straight from the sea to heights that dwarf the tallest skyscrapers. These geological scars tell the story of ice ages past, when glaciers, 2 miles thick, ground their way across the Scandinavian peninsula, leaving behind waterways so deep that sperm whales hunt in their dark waters just meters from shore. Norway holds the distinction of being the only nation with permanent settlements in both the Arctic and Antarctic circles, a geographic reach that spans from Svalbard's polar deserts to Queen Maud Land's ice shelves. This northern kingdom stretches across 1,100 miles of latitude, encompassing climates that range from temperate coastal regions where palm trees grow to permafrost zones where the ground never thaws. Along this vast expanse, the Norwegian people have built a civilization that adapts to nature rather than attempting to conquer it, creating cities that blend seamlessly with their surroundings and communities that thrive in places most would consider uninhabitable. Far beyond the Arctic Circle, where Norway's reach extends into the polar wilderness, lies the Svalbard Archipelago. This frozen frontier sits just 650 miles from the North Pole, a collection of islands where darkness lasts 4 months and daylight stretches through an endless summer. Here, the rules of civilization bend to Arctic law, creating communities unlike any other on Earth. Longyearbyen's settlement anchors human presence in this extreme environment. The world's northernmost town of its size houses 2,500 residents who have adapted to life where permafrost prevents burial and buildings stand on stilts to avoid melting the frozen ground beneath. Colorful wooden structures line the valleys between glaciated peaks, their bright paint defying the monochrome landscape. Scientists, miners, and Arctic specialists call this place home. Living in a society where everyone carries rifles outside town limits and children learn polar bear safety before they learn to ride bikes. The polar bear habitat areas surrounding these settlements remind us who truly rules Svalbard. An estimated 3,000 polar bears patrol these islands, moving across sea ice and tundra in search of seals. These massive predators treat the archipelago as their ancestral hunting grounds, denning in snowdrifts and teaching cubs to navigate a world of ice. Warning signs mark the town boundaries where human territory ends and bear country begins, a stark reminder that people remain visitors in this Arctic realm. Barentsburg, Russian settlement, preserves a different chapter of Svalbard's story. This mining town of 500 residents operates as a piece of Russia transplanted onto Norwegian soil, complete with Soviet-era architecture and Cyrillic street signs. Coal mining continues here as it has since the 1930s, with workers extracting fuel from seams laid down when Svalbard sat near the equator 60 million years ago. The settlement maintains its own power plant, hospital, and cultural center, creating a self-sufficient outpost where Russian traditions persist beneath the midnight sun. At the very edge of this Arctic realm, where Norway meets the Polar Sea, lies Nordkapp and Finnmark. This is Europe's northernmost frontier, a place where the continent ends in dramatic cliffs and endless ocean. The landscape here exists on a scale that challenges human perception. Winter darkness lasts for months, while summer brings the midnight sun that never sets. The Nordkapp cliff formations rise 1,007 feet straight from the Arctic Ocean. These ancient rock walls mark the edge of the European continent, sculpted by millions of years of wind and waves. The cliffs stand as silent witnesses to the power of nature's forces. During summer, thousands of seabirds nest on the narrow ledges, their cries mixing with the sound of waves crashing far below. Honningsvåg village sits sheltered in a bay just south of the Great Cliffs. This fishing community of 2,500 souls represents human persistence at its most determined. The harbor never freezes, kept open by the warm Gulf Stream that reaches even these northern latitudes. Colorful houses cluster against the hillsides, their bright paint defying the long polar nights that stretch from November to January. From the Arctic's frozen expanses, we journey south to Alta Canyon, where the Alta River has carved one of Europe's most dramatic gorges. This northern canyon cuts through Finnmark's plateau, creating walls of ancient rock that tower above rushing waters. The river runs clear and cold, fed by mountain streams and distant glaciers. Here in Norway's far north, nature works on a scale that makes human presence seem temporary. The canyon walls tell a story written in stone layers formed over 600 million years. Slate and sandstone alternate in bands of grey and rust, each line marking epochs when this land lay beneath prehistoric seas. The Altaelva has spent millennia cutting through these deposits, exposing Earth's history one layer at a time. Ravens nest in the highest ledges, while Arctic char swim in pools far below. Alta Canyon stretches for several miles through terrain that shifts between vertical drops and gentler slopes covered in dwarf birch and willow. The midnight sun bathes these walls in golden light during summer months, while winter brings the northern lights dancing above the gorge. Local Sami herders have known these paths for thousands of years, following reindeer migrations that still cross the plateau above. Their ancient trails wind along the canyon rim, marked by stone cairns that guide travelers through fog and snow. Far above the Arctic Circle, where these extremes meet civilization, lies the Tromsø region. This northern territory exists at 69 degrees latitude, deeper into the polar realm than most of Alaska. Winter brings 4 months of darkness, while summer delivers endless daylight. Here, the Norwegian people have created their northernmost urban center, proving that life flourishes even in the planet's harshest corners. Tromsø city spreads across an island between dramatic fjords and snow-capped peaks. Known as the Arctic capital, it serves as the last major outpost before the polar wilderness takes over completely. The city houses 75,000 residents who navigate months of polar night and midnight sun with equal ease. Wooden buildings painted in warm reds and yellows line the harbor, their colors standing bold against winter's monochrome palette. Scientists launch expeditions from here to study the Arctic, while the local university educates students from around the world about polar environments. The Tromsø Bridge connects the island city to the mainland with a graceful arc spanning 3,400 feet. Completed in 1960, this cantilever structure rises 130 feet above the Tromsø-Sundet Strait, allowing ships to pass beneath on their way to Arctic waters. Local residents cross it daily, barely noticing how the bridge frames views of mountains that seem to rise straight from the sea. During polar night, the bridge becomes a viewing platform for the northern lights, which dance across the sky in ribbons of green and purple. The Arctic Cathedral stands on the mainland side, its triangular profile mimicking the surrounding peaks. Built in 1965, this modernist church features concrete panels that form sharp angles against the sky. The entire eastern wall consists of stained glass, creating a mosaic that glows with Arctic light. Inside, the space remains simple and unadorned, letting natural light and shadow create the atmosphere. The cathedral serves both as a working church and a symbol of human persistence in the far north, where architecture must speak the same stark language as the landscape. From the Arctic mainland, we venture westward to the Vesterålen Islands, where the Norwegian Sea meets ancient mountain chains. These islands rise from the ocean like granite sentinels, their peaks catching the first light of the endless summer days. The archipelago forms a natural barrier between the open Atlantic and the sheltered waters of the inner coast. Life here follows rhythms set by tides and seasons, unchanged for 1,000 years. At the northern tip of Andøya Island, the town of Andines serves as a gateway to one of nature's greatest spectacles. Sperm whales patrol these deep waters year-round, drawn by underwater canyons that plunge to depths of 3,000 feet just offshore. The continental shelf drops away so close to land that these ocean giants feed within sight of the harbor. Local boats carry visitors to witness these 60-foot creatures surface and dive, their massive tail flukes rising against the backdrop of snow-capped mountains. South, across the bridge to Langøya, Sortland surprises with its bold blue architecture. Every building in the town center wears shades of azure, cobalt, and midnight blue, transforming the Arctic settlement into an artist's vision. This Blue City project began in the 1990s when local artists convinced residents to paint their homes and businesses in oceanic hues. The effect turns ordinary streets into galleries where color defies the long polar nights. On the outer edge of the archipelago, Nyksund clings to rocky shores where Atlantic storms once drove fishing boats to shelter. Abandoned in the 1970s when the fishing industry collapsed, artists discovered these empty houses and brought new life to weathered walls. Today, studios and workshops fill former fish processing plants, while international artists spend summers creating in the perpetual daylight. The village stands as proof that isolation can foster creativity, turning remoteness into inspiration. From the mainland's dramatic coastline, a chain of granite peaks rises from the Norwegian Sea, like the spine of a sleeping giant. The Lofoten Islands stretch for 100 miles above the Arctic Circle, where fishing villages cling to narrow strips of land between mountain walls and open ocean. These islands form a natural barrier against Atlantic storms, creating sheltered waters that have sustained communities for over 1,000 years. Light here behaves differently than anywhere else on Earth, painting the landscape in colors that shift from deep purple winters to golden summers that never end. Henningsvær spreads across several small islands connected by bridges, earning its title as the Venice of Lofoten. Red Råbua cabins stand on stilts above the water, their foundations driven deep into the seabed. These traditional fishermen's shelters once housed thousands during the winter cod season. Today, the village maintains its working harbor, while artists have transformed old fish processing plants into galleries and studios. The surrounding skerries create a natural amphitheater where sea eagles circle above, and the midnight sun casts shadows that point in every direction. Fjord preserves the authentic character of a 19th century fishing station, complete with its original red warehouses and cod liver oil factory. This UNESCO-protected village sits at the end of a narrow fjord, sheltered by peaks that rise straight from the water. The old general store still displays its original shelves and scales, while the rorbua stand exactly as they did when Arctic cod brought wealth to these remote shores. Time moves differently here, measured not by clocks, but by tides and seasons that have governed life for generations. Rain Village occupies perhaps the most dramatic setting in all of Lofoten, where pointed peaks surround a natural harbor like cathedral spires. The village stretches along a single road that hugs the shoreline, with houses painted in colors that mirror the northern lights above. Local fishermen still launch their boats before dawn, following routes their ancestors navigated by reading wind patterns and bird flights. When winter storms rage outside the protected bay, rain becomes a sanctuary where the only sounds are creaking dock lines and the distant cry of Arctic terns. From the Arctic frontier, we journey south into Nordland, where Norway reveals its most dramatic contrasts. This vast county stretches from the Lofoten Islands to the Swedish border, containing more coastline than any other Norwegian region. Here, the midnight sun bathes granite peaks in eternal daylight during summer months. The landscape shifts between sheltered fjords and exposed ocean, creating a world where nature operates by its own rules. The Saltstraumen Maelstrom churns with unstoppable force near Bodø. This natural phenomenon creates the world's strongest tidal current, pushing 400 million cubic meters of seawater through a narrow strait every 6 hours. The water accelerates to speeds of 25 miles per hour, forming whirlpools up to 33 feet wide. Local fishermen have navigated these treacherous waters for centuries, timing their passages between the tides that can swallow small boats whole. When summer arrives in Nordland, the sun forgets how to set. The midnight sun. Viewpoints scattered across the region offer front-row seats to this Arctic spectacle. From mountain summits and coastal cliffs, visitors watch the sun trace circles above the horizon without ever touching it. This endless daylight transforms the landscape into something otherworldly, where time loses meaning and nature's rhythms follow ancient patterns. The phenomenon lasts from late May through mid-July, giving the land nearly 2 months of continuous sunshine. From the Arctic's frozen heights, we descend toward Norway's western coastline, where the Helgeland coast unfolds across hundreds of islands and skerries. This stretch of land and sea marks where the midnight sun meets ancient mountains, creating a borderland between the extreme north and the gentler fjords below. Here, granite peaks rise directly from the ocean, while fishing villages cling to rocky shores that have sheltered seafarers for 1,000 years. The Helgeland coast remains one of Norway's most dramatic meeting points between mountain and sea. Further south, along the coast, Møre og Romsdal reveals Norway's most photographed mountain roads and deepest fjords. This region holds some of the country's most vertical landscapes, where waterfalls plunge from mountaintops directly into the sea below. The mountains here wear their age in layers of exposed rock that geologists read like history books. Villages nestle at the base of peaks so steep that winter avalanches shape daily life and ancient farming techniques. Trollstigen, the Troll's Path, winds through this vertical world in 11 hairpin bends carved from solid rock. Built in 1936, this mountain road climbs 2,800 feet through a valley where waterfalls thunder on both sides. The Stigfossen waterfall drops 1,000 feet beside the road, sending mist across the asphalt on windy days. Engineers designed each curve to work with the mountain rather than against it, creating a route that feels both impossible and inevitable. From Trollstigen's summit, the view stretches across a landscape that seems torn from the Earth's foundation. Mountains stand like broken teeth against the sky, while valleys cut deep channels between them. This is terrain that teaches respect through its sheer scale and unforgiving angles. The road itself has become a destination, drawing those who seek to understand how humans can build paths through places that nature meant to keep separate. From Norway's wild extremes, we arrive at Trondheim, where 1,000 years of history meets the waters of the Trondheim's Fjord. This ancient city served as Norway's first capital, a place where Viking kings once ruled from wooden halls. Today, modern life flows through medieval streets, creating a city that honors its past while living fully in the present. The Nidelva River curves through the heart of it all, its banks lined with structures that have witnessed centuries pass. The colorful houses along the river create Trondheim's most recognizable scene. These wooden warehouses stand on stilts above the water, their red, yellow, and ochre facades reflecting in the current below. Built in the 1700s and 1800s, they once stored goods from across the North Sea trade routes. Merchants filled these structures with dried fish, grain, and timber, bound for distant ports. Now they house cafes, offices, and workshops, their bright walls still catching the northern light, just as they have for generations. Nidaros Cathedral rises above the city skyline, its Gothic spires reaching toward skies that shift between midnight sun and polar night. Construction began in 1070 over the burial site of Saint Olav, Norway's patron saint. Stone by stone, craftsmen built what would become Scandinavia's largest medieval building. The western facade displays rows of sculptures, each figure carved with details that survived 8 centuries of weather. Inside, light filters through stained glass windows, illuminating spaces where Norwegian monarchs still come for coronation. Kristiansand Fortress watches over Trondheim from its hilltop position east of the city centre. Built after the Great Fire of 1681, this star-shaped fortification protected the rebuilt city from Swedish invasions. Its white walls and red buildings stand out against green slopes, visible from almost anywhere in town. The fortress grounds offer views across red-tiled roofs to the fjord beyond, where the same waters that brought Viking longships now carry modern vessels. From these ramparts, Trondheim's evolution from medieval trading post to modern city spreads out below, each era adding its own layer to the urban landscape. From the Arctic's frozen expanses, we journey south to where Norway's mountains reach their greatest heights. Jotunheimen National Park spreads across the central spine of the country, a realm of peaks and glaciers that the Norse called home of the giants. This protected wilderness contains Northern Europe's highest mountains, where over 250 summits pierce above 6,000 feet. The park covers 1,151 square kilometers of raw alpine terrain, shaped by the same glacial forces that carved the fjords. Galdhøpiggen summit stands as the crown of Northern Europe, rising 8,100 feet above sea level. The ascent reveals layers of geological time frozen in stone, each band telling stories from epochs when this land lay beneath tropical seas. Summer brings thousands of climbers to its slopes, yet the mountain maintains its austere character. From the summit cairn, visibility can stretch 100 miles on clear days, revealing a sea of peaks that roll toward every horizon. Bergen Ridge Trail traces one of Norway's most dramatic mountain edges. This narrow spine of rock separates two lakes that differ in color by 1,000 feet in elevation. Lake Gjende glows emerald green from glacial minerals, while Besvatnet reflects the deep blue of mountain sky. The ridge walk spans 5 miles of exposed terrain where hikers balance between these contrasting waters. Each summer, 30,000 people traverse this knife-edge path, drawn by views that inspired Henrik Ibsen to write his epic poem Peer Gynt after walking here in 1862. From the Arctic's frozen expanse, we descend into the northern fjords, where ice and water have carved passages of extraordinary depth. This region holds some of Norway's most dramatic landscapes, shaped by glaciers that still cling to the highest peaks. Here, villages nestle between vertical walls of stone, and modern engineering connects communities across terrain that once isolated them for centuries. The northern fjords represent Norway's geological heart, where the forces that created this nation remain active and visible. Stryn sits at the inner reaches of Nordfjord, where 3 valleys converge beneath towering mountains. This small town serves as a gateway to both summer skiing and fjord exploration. The Stryn River rushes through the center, carrying glacial melt from the Jostedalsbreen ice cap above. Local farms stretch up steep hillsides, their fields carved from slopes that seem impossible to cultivate. The community has adapted to this vertical world, building homes that perch on ledges and roads that zigzag up mountain sides. The Loen sky lift rises from sea level to Mount Hoven's summit in just 5 minutes, climbing 3,300 feet through sheer mountain terrain. This cable car opened in 2017, making accessible what was once a grueling climb. From the top station, the view extends across the entire Nordfjord system. On clear days, you can see the Jostedalsbreen Glacier stretching across the horizon. The summit plateau offers hiking trails that lead to cliff edges, where the fjord waters appear as a ribbon of blue far below. Nordfjord's glacial landscapes tell the story of ice in motion. The Briksdal Glacier descends from the vast Jostedalsbreen ice field, its blue tongue reaching toward the valley floor. Waterfalls cascade from hanging valleys, their sources hidden in clouds. These glaciers continue their ancient work, grinding rock into powder and carving new channels through the bedrock. The landscape changes with each season as ice advances and retreats, creating an environment that shifts between accessible beauty and raw wilderness. Geirangerfjord. This UNESCO World Heritage Site cuts 9 miles inland from the Norwegian Sea, its waters dark and still between walls that rise 5,000 feet straight up. Ice Age glaciers carved this channel over millions of years, leaving behind a waterway so perfect it seems designed by giants. The fjord narrows to just 600 feet at its tightest point, creating an intimate canyon where waterfalls tumble from heights that make them appear frozen in time. Eagle's Bend viewpoint offers the first glimpse of this geological masterpiece from above. The road twists through 11 hairpin turns to reach this perch, each bend revealing new angles of the fjord below. From this height, cruise ships look like toy boats floating in a bathtub. The viewpoint sits 2,000 feet above sea level, providing a perspective that shows how the fjord snakes between mountains like a river of glass. Morning fog often fills the valley, creating moments when only the highest peaks emerge from the clouds. At the fjord's innermost point sits Geiranger village, home to just 250 permanent residents. This tiny settlement clings to the only flat land available, squeezed between vertical rock faces and deep water. Historic farms dot the cliffsides above, abandoned homesteads that once housed families who lived by lowering ladders to reach their fields. The village serves as base camp for thousands of visitors each summer, yet maintains its authentic Norwegian character through traditional wooden buildings and local fishing boats that still work these waters. Seven Sisters waterfall cascades down the fjord's northern wall in 7 distinct streams. The falls drop 1,350 feet in total, their white ribbons visible from miles away against the dark granite. Legend tells of 7 sisters who danced on the mountainside, their movements forever captured in flowing water. Directly across the fjord, the Suta waterfall faces them, its single stream said to represent a rejected admirer. When spring snowmelt swells the falls, their roar echoes through the canyon, filling the air with mist that creates rainbows in afternoon sunlight. We descend along Norway's western coast to Ålesund, where the Atlantic meets a city unlike any other in Scandinavia. This coastal gem spreads across several islands, connected by bridges and tunnels. Fire destroyed the original wooden town in 1904, but from those ashes rose something remarkable. The entire city center was rebuilt in Art Nouveau style, creating the world's most complete collection of this architectural movement in one place. Mount Axla rises 418 steps above the town, offering views that reveal Ålesund's true geography. From this vantage point, the city appears as it truly is, a collection of islands scattered like stepping stones across the water. The panorama stretches from the open Atlantic to the snow-capped peaks of the Sunnmøre Alps. On clear days, visitors can see fishing boats heading out to the rich waters that have sustained this community for centuries. The viewpoint shows how perfectly the rebuilt city fits its natural setting, with pastel buildings following the curves of the shoreline. The Art Nouveau architecture defines every street in the historic center. Turrets, spires, and ornate facades decorated with dragons, flowers, and Viking motifs line the waterfront. Local architects drew inspiration from nature and Norse mythology when rebuilding after the fire. Stone and brick replaced wood, but the whimsical spirit remained. Walking these streets feels like stepping into a fairy tale written in stone and mortar. Each building tells its own story through carved details and painted ornaments that have weathered more than a century of Atlantic storms. Beyond the city, the Sunnmøre Alps create one of Norway's most dramatic mountain landscapes. These peaks rise directly from the fjords, their granite faces polished smooth by ancient glaciers. The range includes some of Norway's most challenging climbing routes, attracting mountaineers from around the world. In winter, these mountains become a playground for ski touring enthusiasts who traverse glaciers older than recorded history. The Alps form a natural amphitheater around Ålesund, sheltering the city while providing endless opportunities for those who seek vertical adventures. We journey south to where Norway's deepest fjord cuts into the heart of the country. Sognefjord stretches 127 miles inland from the coast, plunging to depths of over 4,000 feet below sea level. Its waters run darker than the ocean, colored by minerals from mountain streams. This is the King of Fjords, where vertical granite walls rise directly from the water to heights that challenge comprehension. At the innermost reach of this great waterway sits Flåm, a village of just 350 souls. The settlement occupies a rare patch of level ground where the Flom River meets the fjord. Mountains press in from all sides, their slopes so steep that avalanche barriers protect the few buildings below. Despite its tiny size, Flom serves as a gateway between the fjord's depths and the mountain plateaus above. The Flom railway journey represents one of engineering's most audacious mountain conquests. In just 12 miles, the train climbs 2,838 feet through terrain that seems impossible for rail travel. 20 tunnels bore through solid rock, while the track clings to cliff sides and crosses gorges on narrow bridges. The steepest section rises at a gradient of 1 in 18, forcing the train to use 5 separate braking systems. Construction took 20 years and required hand drilling through granite in conditions where workers dangled from ropes over 1,000-foot drops. The Geirangerfjord branch splits from the main Sognefjord like a narrow blade thrust between mountains. UNESCO protects this 11-mile waterway as one of Earth's most dramatic landscapes. At its narrowest point, the fjord measures just 820 feet across, while mountains soar 5,900 feet straight up on either side. Waterfalls cascade from hanging valleys, their mist creating rainbows in the confined space between the cliffs. The water here runs so still and dark, it becomes a perfect mirror, doubling the mountains in its depths. From the Arctic's frozen expanse, we journey south to where Norway's fjords reach their most dramatic expression in the Hardangerfjord region. This is where ice and time have carved their masterpiece into the western coast. The Hardangerfjord stretches 111 miles inland from the North Sea, creating Norway's second longest fjord system. Mountains rise directly from the water's edge, their granite faces polished smooth by millennia of glacial movement. At the fjord's innermost reach lies Eidfjord, a village of 900 souls living where 4 valleys converge. The settlement dates back to Viking times, when Norse traders recognized this natural harbor's strategic value. Today's Eidfjord serves as gateway to the Hardangervidda, Europe's largest mountain plateau. Stone houses cluster near the water, their foundations built on bedrock exposed when the last ice age retreated 10,000 years ago. Vøringsfossen waterfall plunges 597 feet through a narrow canyon, making it Norway's most visited natural attraction. The Bureio River gathers strength across the Hardangervidda plateau before launching itself over the cliff edge. Mist rises constantly from the impact zone below, creating rainbows that shift with the sun's angle. The waterfall's power carved the Mørbudalen Valley over thousands of years, exposing rock layers that tell Earth's ancient story. The Hardanger Bridge spans the fjord with a single leap of 4,298 feet, connecting communities that once required hours of ferry travel. Completed in 2013, this suspension bridge ranks among the longest in the world. Its towers rise 656 feet above the water, allowing cruise ships to pass beneath. The bridge's cables catch morning light like harp strings, creating a modern monument that complements rather than dominates the natural landscape. Bergen spreads across 7 hills and countless islands, a city shaped by centuries of maritime trade. Rain falls here more days than not, yet this constant mist has preserved wooden structures that elsewhere would have crumbled to dust. The city's harbour remains as vital today as when Viking ships first anchored in these protected waters. Bergen Wharf stands as a monument to medieval commerce. These colourful wooden buildings lean against each other like old friends sharing secrets. Built by German merchants in the 1300s, the wharf survived fires, wars, and time itself. Behind the painted facades, narrow alleyways twist between buildings where cod liver oil once dripped through floorboards. Today, artisan workshops occupy spaces where fortunes in dried fish changed hands centuries ago. The fish market spreads along the harbour's edge, alive with voices calling out the morning's catch. Vendors arrange gleaming salmon, Arctic char, and king crab on beds of ice. This tradition reaches back 800 years, when Bergen served as Norway's capital and fish-fed half of Europe. Local fishermen still dock their boats steps away, selling directly to customers who know quality by sight and smell. The market operates rain or shine, its energy unchanged since medieval times. Mount Florian's funicular railway climbs steadily above the city, pulling passengers up slopes too steep for roads. The journey takes 8 minutes, rising 1,050 feet through forest and rock. At the summit, Bergen reveals itself completely. Red rooftops, blue fjords, and green islands stretching to the horizon. The railway has carried visitors since 1918, its wooden cars creaking up the same tracks that once transported materials to build the mountaintop restaurant. We journey south to where Norway's fjords reach their most dramatic expression. Stavanger sits at the gateway to Lysefjord, one of the country's most spectacular waterways. This southwestern city has transformed from a quiet fishing village into Norway's oil capital, yet its connection to the ancient landscape remains unbroken. Here, modern life meets geological time, where office workers can touch rock formations that predate human civilization by millions of years. The Lysefjord boat cruise reveals nature's architecture at its most imposing. These waters run 26 miles inland, carved by glaciers that left walls of granite rising 3,000 feet straight from the sea. The fjord's name means light fjord, earned from the pale granite that glows in the northern sun. As boats navigate these narrow passages, passengers witness waterfalls that plunge directly into the sea and caves that have sheltered seals for thousands of years. The water below reaches depths of 1,300 feet, dark and cold enough to support marine life usually found in open ocean. Preikestolen, or Pulpit Rock, stands as Norway's most photographed natural platform. This flat-topped cliff juts out 1,982 feet above Lysefjord's waters, its surface measuring roughly 82 by 82 feet. The rock formed 10,000 years ago when melting glaciers cracked the mountain along precise lines. Today, 500,000 visitors make the 4-mile hike each year to stand on this natural pulpit. From its edge, the view encompasses the entire fjord system, revealing how ice and time carved these valleys from solid rock. Kjeragbolten presents nature's most precarious balancing act. This boulder wedges perfectly between two cliff faces, suspended 3,228 feet above the fjord. The rock measures just 5 cubic meters, yet it has remained locked in place since the last ice age. Reaching it requires a challenging 5-mile trek across exposed mountain terrain. Those who step onto the boulder find themselves standing on a geological anomaly that defies logic. Below, the fjord appears as a thin ribbon of blue, a reminder of the vast scale of Norway's vertical landscape. Norway's landscape softens as we journey to the southern coast. This region marks where the North Sea meets the Skagerrak Strait, creating a gentler Norway of white beaches, smooth granite shores, and historic maritime towns. The climate here allows gardens to flourish and wooden houses to stand painted in bright colors against blue skies. Summer brings warm days that draw Norwegians to these shores, where the harsh realities of the northern wilderness feel like a distant memory. Lindenes Lighthouse stands at Norway's southernmost point, where two seas collide in perpetual motion. Built in 1656, this beacon has guided sailors through treacherous waters for nearly 400 years. The original coal-fired light gave way to oil, then electricity, yet the lighthouse keeper's duty remained unchanged through centuries. Today, visitors climb the cast-iron spiral stairs to witness the meeting point of the North Sea and Baltic Sea, where currents clash and create patterns visible from the lighthouse gallery. The surrounding granite landscape, polished smooth by millennia of waves, creates natural pools where seabirds nest and seals rest between fishing expeditions. Kristiansand emerges as the capital of southern Norway, a city built on the quadrant plan by King Christian IV in 1641. Its grid system of straight streets was revolutionary for its time in Scandinavia, designed to prevent fires from spreading through the wooden buildings. The Old Town district of Posebyen preserves this heritage with its low white houses and narrow lanes that have survived wars and modernization. Along the harbor, fish markets operate as they have for generations, while the nearby archipelago offers hundreds of small islands accessible only by boat. The city serves as a gateway between Norway's wilderness and the civilized south, maintaining traditions while adapting to modern life. Setesdal Valley cuts north from the coast like a green river through the mountains, preserving Norway's folk traditions in its isolated communities. This narrow valley has maintained customs, building techniques, and dialects that disappeared elsewhere centuries ago. Traditional farms cling to steep hillsides, their ancient log buildings demonstrating construction methods passed down through generations. The Setesdal bunads, considered among Norway's most ornate traditional costumes, still appear at weddings and festivals, their intricate silver work and embroidery telling stories of families and regions. The valley's rushing river once powered mills and forges, creating a self-sufficient world that modern roads have only recently begun to change. Where the Oslofjord meets the Scandinavian mainland, Norway's capital rises from the water's edge. Oslo spreads across gentle hills and forested ridges, a city where glass towers stand beside thousand-year-old fortresses. The fjord stretches south toward the Skagerrak Strait, its protected waters serving as both highway and harbor. This meeting of land and sea has shaped human settlement here for over a millennium. The Opera House emerges from the harbor like an iceberg of white marble and glass. Completed in 2007, its sloping roof invites visitors to walk from water level to its peak. The building's angular surfaces mirror the glacial landscapes of Norway's north. Inside, 3 performance halls host everything from classical opera to contemporary dance. The main auditorium seats 1,364 people beneath an interior of stripped oak that curves like the hull of a Viking ship. Akershus Fortress commands the eastern harbor from its stone ramparts. Built around 1290, this medieval castle has never fallen to siege. Its walls have witnessed 7 centuries of Norwegian history, from medieval kings to Nazi occupation. Today, the fortress grounds contain military museums, the Norwegian Armed Forces headquarters, and the Royal Mausoleum. The fortress walls offer views across the Oslofjord to the islands beyond. Vigeland Sculpture Park displays the life's work of Gustav Vigeland across 80 acres of landscaped grounds. More than 200 sculptures in bronze, granite, and wrought iron depict the human form in every stage of life. The monolith towers 46 feet high at the park's center, carved from a single block of granite with 121 intertwined figures. The bridge features 58 bronze sculptures, including the famous Angry Boy. This open-air gallery remains free to all visitors, drawing millions each year to witness Vigeland's vision of humanity. From the frozen silence of Svalbard to the echo of waterfalls tumbling through ancient fjords, Norway is a country that doesn't shout, it whispers. It reveals itself slowly in the stillness of northern skies and the soft creak of glacier ice, in the warmth of a fishing village at sunrise, or the clean scent of pine rolling down a mountainside. In places like the artist village of Nuksund or the sheer cliffs above Geiranger, it's clear how closely life ties itself to the land. Paths wind from rain's quiet harbors to the ledges of Trolltunga, where weather and stone shape every step. Click on the video that's appearing now to continue your journey of the wonders of the world.